If you clicked on the video, you obviously saw the title, so let's start with the obvious. Do any of us really trust Sony to touch the Spider-Verse at this point? Even now, when asked about the worst films of the last decade, Madame Web and Morbius leap right to mind. Yes, they've made some terrible films. But let's remember they did bring us the Venom trilogy, the Spider-Verse animations, as well as the 3 Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, and Tom recently signed a contract for 3 more. And with this modern Spider-Man connected universe, they have profited more than $500 million. So why wouldn't they keep trying? Next up in the Sony Spider-Man universe, or SSU, is Kraven the Hunter, the first hard R-rated film from Sony's connected universe. Kraven is a classic Spider-Man villain created by the great Stan Lee back in 1964. Sergei Nikolaevich Kraven is typically portrayed as a renowned big game hunter whose goal in life is to beat Spider-Man to prove himself as the world's greatest hunter. In his first appearance, he calls Spider-Man the most dangerous game, a direct reference to the 1924 short story of the same name, in which General Zaroff, a Russian big game hunter, hunts people for sport.
Here on my island, I hunt the most dangerous game.
Kraven was actually considered as the villain for the Black Panther movie, before they shifted to the Killmonger plotline. Similarly, John Watts, director of Spider-Man Homecoming and its sequel Far From Home, said he was considering Kraven as the villain in the 3rd movie, before shifting to the concept for No Way Home. Kraven's standalone film was in the original plans for the SSU, and has slowly been being developed since before the first Venom movie. The original script was written in 2018.
Kraven the Hunter is a story of the making of a villain.
My son, they are prey. We are predators.
This is a standalone movie. This is Sergei Kravenov becoming Kraven.
We will see him as he grows, and how his path is molded by his father, and why he decided to start working his way through his list.
The choice to make an R-rated film allowed me to be far more honest about that journey.
And as the trailer makes clear,
once you're on his list, there's only one way off.
in the wake of Morbius and Madame Web, a lot of people are already dismissing this film, and I've already mentioned Sony's track record, but there's a couple more apparent red flags to address. The film was shot from March through June back in 2022 on location in England, Iceland, and Scotland. It was rushed into post with a projected release date of January 2023. Speaking from personal experience, that's an ambitious post-production schedule for an indie film, and Kraven is a $130 million comic book epic. This is a tentpole film, and I just don't think that 6-month period was realistic. It was delayed until October 6, 2023, and that made sense to me. In July 2023, the film updated its product status on IMDb to completed, and everything seemed to be good. After that, reshoots were scheduled to tighten the plot and sharpen the characters, but I think that's just studio spin. Back in August 2022, just weeks after the completion of principal photography, Rhino actor Alessandro Nivola sat down with a Hollywood Reporter and mentioned, "The physical ability of the characters in this movie is also more grounded in reality. People aren't flying around or anything." JC described it as the most incredible Olympic athlete you've ever seen. Moreover, the role, which I'm not yet allowed to disclose, was just a real acting opportunity for me. You'll see. It's just a great character part, and I didn't have to do any CGI. I didn't have to do any green screen. I only transformed physically in the final moments of the movie, so it's just a classic villain role. Based on that, I'm fairly certain this shot was actually originally a post-credits scene, and I've found some incidental evidence that seems to confirm that. Alessandro's quote was countered in the new trailer, which shows the Rhino in all his glory. It's reasonable to assume that they decided they needed a larger spectacle in the finale, which logically would result in a large portion of the 3rd act being modified and reshot. So this was no small endeavor. However, just as the reshoots were supposed to be scheduled, SAG-AFTRA went on strike. No actors could work. They couldn't even go into a sound booth for ADR. The strike went on for 4 months, finally ending in November 2023. Assuming 6 weeks for reshoots and another 6 months for post-production. After all, creating a massive fight scene with a full CG character does not happen overnight. The earliest we could expect to release would be June or July 2024, so the proposed new release of August 2024 was very reasonable. However, the studio was concerned about the summer release schedule, especially after the debacle of Madame Web, and the competition was looking fierce. They specifically mentioned not wanting to compete with the remake of The Crow, and this led to the final delay to December 13th. Okay, so we know Sony's track record. We know there were dramatic reshoots, and this led to a delay of almost 2 years. So is there anything else to consider? green flags, so to speak, to counter the red flags. The script for Kraven has been kept largely true to the original script turned in by Richard Wenk, compared to The Crow, which had multiple scripts discarded, 8 page-1 rewrites, and at least a dozen writers working in their various iterations. Richard was known for the 3 Equalizer movies, as well as The Expendables 2. The only documented rewrite was by the writing duo of Art Markham and Matt Holloway, who wrote the original Iron Man, as well as the recent film Uncharted. J.C. Shandor was one of the original people considered for the project. He's an Academy Award-nominated screenwriter, and is a career writer-director. His first feature was the Academy Award-nominated Margin Call, a star-studded ensemble focused on the key 24 hours of the 2008 financial crisis. His second film was the following year's All Is Lost, a feature with only a single actor, industry legend Robert Redford, about a sailor struggling to stay alive while alone at sea. From there he went on to A Most Violent Year, one of 2014's best-reviewed films that swept festivals around the world, racking up more than 50 nominations and 15 wins. Most recently, he did Triple Frontier for Netflix. The actioner carried a budget of $115 million, and while it holds the lowest of his audience scores at 58%, only 2 points shy of a fresh rating, Netflix reports that 63 million households watched it within the first month of release, making it a clear success for them. Simply put, the director can handle a large ensemble, intricate character work, and even has experience managing a massive budget. But most of all, every single one of his films were loved by critics and audiences alike. For Kraven, he assembled a team that is flush with Oscar and BAFTA nominations, and at least 5 actual wins. The director of photography already had DP'd 5 other Marvel movies, including Guardians of the Galaxy, so he can ensure it will fit seamlessly into the overall MCU. All in all, he seems incredibly ready to tell the story, and it was a story that he connected with.
It is a family saga.
You are exactly like our father. You don't get to do that to me anymore.
But it is also a good old-fashioned gangster story.
This is not about money. This is about power.
If I had to say what I'm actually, one of the things I'm most proud about with the film is that we've, and I guess this is what some of my films share, we've walked a tonal balance where, myself as a storyteller and as the director, I know the actors, every performance, we're not breaking the fourth wall. We are like all in. We believe in this story like it was really happening.
A generational gangster flick, where the core of the project is a character study with limited CG and a distinct focus on the ultimate elite potential that humanity can summon. JC then reached out to a brilliant cast. In the lead is Aaron Taylor Johnson. Aaron has been professionally acting since he was 11 years old. He's racked up 55 professional screen credits to date, been nominated for 2 BAFTAs, and won the role based on his performance in the recent Bullet Train. When asked why he took the project, he said, "We've all had enough of seeing studios churning out stuff that dilutes wanting to go to the cinema. I wouldn't have signed on to it if I felt there wasn't something to really bring life to the character."
An assassin who uses methods of the animals.
There was some element of bloodlust that he seemed to love.
The 6 of us, and only one of you.
There was a justification for it.
There's 6 of you now.
Just ticking the boxes off the list. What have we got next? Okay, Chorney, we'll go for him.
Aaron recently admitted in an interview that, in preparation for his Kraven role, he studied the life and art of late wildlife photographer Peter Beard, and actually stalked a deer. He's going full method on this one, and in publicity events, he's been sneaking through the audiences, pinning miniature bear traps on unsuspecting fans. He also dedicated himself to the training. His 6-pack abs displayed prominently on the poster are real and not photoshopped. Photographer Gavin Bond, who took the original picture, confirmed, saying, "Yes, those abs are real. This young man put in some serious hours at the gym."
I'm so lucky I get to do the stunts. Old school, real, raw, barefoot, running through the streets of London, doing flips and running off the wall. Because you needed to have that kind of authenticity.
It's always interesting playing a villain, and I think it comes with a lot more depth and complexity. He's real, he's not an alien, right? He's not a visual effects monster. He's a man who's made a choice to be a hunter, a killer, and I think that comes with a lot of layers. Look, Kraven's a hunter, not a poacher. And like every hunter knows, sometimes you gotta cull the herd to preserve, order. But of course, once you start applying that to human beings, that's when it becomes a pretty dark story,
Given the generational nature of the story, Kraven's father will also figure prominently. As Kraven's father, we will have Russell Crowe, who was a personal favorite since his brilliant Academy Award-winning role in Gladiator.
And for anybody who's on the downside of advantage and relying purely on courage, it's possible.
On top of that, we'll have another Oscar winner, Ariana DeBose, playing Kraven's love interest, Calypso. Given all these factors, where will Kraven end up? The director has a solid vision and team, and that's great. Directors are the visionaries. They ultimately decide how a film will look, how scenes will play out, and most of what makes it to the screen in the end. That said, directors may have the vision, but producers are the ones that actually make it possible. They are necessary and pivotal figures in ensuring a film can actually happen. They find the financing, make the connections, and help ensure the overall logistics of a film that allows it to continue to operate. The challenge becomes that whoever brings the money in will usually be investing for a reason, and frequently this will result in bringing requests to the table. Typically, quality films come from a unified vision. As the saying goes, too many cooks spoil the broth. It's incredibly important to have one person in charge that has the final say, but this is where that infamous phrase, "they left for creative differences," comes from. In the end, you can either accept the request and the money, or risk having your project crash. The balance of power shifts to the people funding the project, and if they own the property, the project will likely go on without you. On a recent project I was involved in, I did a page 1 rewrite on the script. My script took a slightly more mature and modern take. The executive producer had me remove a scene where the lead characters take a shot at the bar. It was deemed to be lowbrow behavior, and the scene now features them sharing a glass of wine. This is minute compared to the reshooting of the entire third act, and inserting a full CG character in an action scene. I only share it to illustrate how common it is, and large or small, almost every single movie ever made was likely modified based on notes from the studios or the financiers. Here on channel, our last video was an examination of the Crow remake, which had 45 producers. Imagine going to work and not having one manager, but 45.
And here's something else, Bob. I have 8 different bosses right now.
I beg your pardon?
8 bosses. 8? 8, Bob. So that means that when I make a mistake, I have 8 different people coming by to tell me about it.
Kraven only has 4 credited producers, one of which is the studio head, Avi Arad. While he may bring some notes to the table, he is known to mostly stay out of the way. Though, of course, if he does bring requests, it would behoove you to listen. So very likely, there were only 3 key players. Matt Tolmach, who had been a senior producer on many other Sony Marvel projects. He was likely the key figure in the studio, coordinating directly with Avi. He's been working on every Marvel project done at Sony since the first Amazing Spider-Man. David Householder, who historically has operated as a production manager on set, noted there's not a separately credited production manager, only unit and department managers. Very likely, he was the key producer on set, assisted by Ben Grund, who has also worked as the personal assistant to the director J.C. Chandor. All of this would insinuate that the director has been allowed to execute a very clear vision with very little interference. In the end, I think there's a very good chance that Kraven will actually be incredibly good for the first 90 minutes or so. I am worried that the reshoots are going to turn the end into an unnecessary CG spectacle, and it won't fit well with the grounded film the director intended to create. I just hope that it won't undercut the other work that has been done. Maybe one day we will see a director's cut with JC's original vision, but maybe not. Regardless, in the end, JC said, "I'm extremely proud of the work we've all done together on Kraven, and when the movie finally gets its chance to be seen, I think it's going to surprise the hell out of a lot of people." And I hope he's right. I hope this film is just as satisfying as the incredible action showcased in the trailer, and gives both Aaron Taylor Johnson and Russell Crowe an opportunity to show what brilliant performers they actually are. Don't get me wrong, Sony put to bed with Morbius and Madam Web, so I think there is no chance that this movie is going to be a financial success. Everyone is going to stay a mile away and wait for streaming, but I hope when the time comes, JC is proved right, and it really does surprise the hell out of everyone.